So I want to wish everybody a big hello and Merry Christmas and welcome to Mar-a-Lago for this exciting announcement of the new Golden Fleet. We're calling it the Golden Fleet that we're building for the United States Navy. As you know, we're desperately in need of ships. Our ships some of them have gotten old and tired and obsolete, and we're going to go the exact opposite direction. Very large, the largest we've ever built.
I'm sure you're familiar. Rage.
Brand new.
Revenge. Destruction. Malice has power.
Battleships.
Of malice take over. That's when you're at your most human. After all, humanity's truest form is evil.
Greetings and welcome to Ancient Library, an advanced UFO literature update number 4. So in this video we will talk about war, UFOs, Atlantis and the younger Dryas extinction event. And you may wonder how these things are connected in any way. Let's just start with the first chapter, the Prolog, which is called War Planet Earth and the Constant Absence of Peace. So historians agree that there hasn't been a single year free from conflict globally in recorded history. And if we question the mainstream data on how many definitive years without war there are, the answer is indeed 0. Let's think about that for a minute. If we look at the Stone Ages, we got people running around conducting war on single slot IQ numbers with according weapons. And if we look at the Middle Ages, the only thing what's left there are castles and churches, so it was basically war all day. And if we look at today's world map and look at the conflicts, we can really see nothing changed, except the technology we are using to conduct these wars. And if we spin this model a little further, we can say primitive humans plus rudimentary tech equals war with potential for small environmental impacts. If we talk about primitive humans plus advanced tech, it equals war with potential for medium environmental impacts. Pretty much things we have going on right now. If we look at advanced humans plus very advanced tech, it equals a potential for intergalactic war and especially potential for planetary destruction. So we're talking about Kardashev scale business here. Look at ancient wonders like the pyramids or other sites where things were done which we can't really explain at the moment. And if there was an advanced civilization back in the day, the results and the reasons why we are not able to find much could be explained via the use of extreme destructive weaponry. And if we look back and look which events could be rationalized to such a destructive event at the same alleged time frame, we are arriving at the subject matter called the younger Dryas extinction event, which not only includes a hypothesis speaking of an immense impact scenario, but also following cataclysmic events which reduce Earth's population by a lot. And this could be one huge factor responsible for us in the current day not finding a lot of stuff, originating or left over from highly advanced past civilizations, like for example Atlantis. We think we are so advanced compared to the Middle Ages and Stone Ages, but reality shows even with a seemingly intelligent evolution, our highest priority is clearly the military and the process of permanently keeping an oven which symbolizes a war machinery on fire to generate interest and create some kind of war economy as a motive to actively spread misery under people. Normal people like you and I, which are potentially steadily captured in a state of constant fear of war approaching in current times, the 21st century. So not much changed from the Middle Ages in terms of mindset, only the tech. The fear of war from so-called adversaries, like in for example the USA, the steadily present notion of crawling angst of pre-installed Chinese spy software on or in intelligent vacuum cleaner systems is real, to name an example. I think competition is good, but I'm positive most acts of war are initiated out of pure greed and power hunger, and not even close to any kind of naturally escalated adversary relationship. So there are many questionable justifications to start a war these days, and even considering the academically accepted history timeline of the last few thousand years, this notion seems to be undisputed forever. So if we would go back 12,000 years ago, a potentially highly advanced and thriving Atlantean power structure should not be a much different kind of people. There are many theories covering the possible existence of rather advanced ancient civilizations, sometimes even whole continents which seemingly got lost over time. The most famous one besides Atlantis is Lemuria, and there is also another one which is just called Mu. Based on its alleged founder, Muras, Mu could just be another name for Lemuria, but that's not clear at this point. Muras was the counterpart to the Atlantean version, whose founder goes by the name of Atlant. Seems to make sense. And I want to add that these names are details which do not hold any water considering the core premise of this video. And maybe you think the dude who founded Atlantis was called Poseidon, and that's okay. The main puzzle piece on this whole notion is that at one point, thousands of years in the past, there was a civilization or at least a power structure, which was very advanced. In many regards seemingly more advanced than we are today. So things which could fall in that category could be the still remaining question of how things like the Great Pyramid were actually built and how certain parts of the construction were executed. Things like the Easter Island stuff, multiple megalithic ruins all over the world, and things like Stonehenge, which seem to be connected to a certain kind of lost or forbidden knowledge on not only how to build and construct certain structures, but also astronomical connections and the use of energy grids and advanced chemical processes, and I would say a seemingly more conscious access to a different density of reality. So there are basically two options on how this was actually possible. Speaking of a scenario in which advanced and technological sophisticated civilizations are having a world war type of scenario on planet Earth, for example 12 to 13,000 years ago. Option 1, Earth humans once had, but we lost access to this knowledge, and tech trees or collective lost the memory over time due to a potential multitude of reasons, for example cataclysms. Option 2, and more advanced, at least on Kardashev scale 2 or 3, ET rays came here and created or guided our past ancestors, or just settled and embedded themselves into the planet's earthly war game, seemingly deemed to last for eternities. Or initiated it, which I don't really believe. But you get the point. To enhance the base power level on Earth, and either them or us, Earth humans, use the stuff to conduct devastating war acts in any imaginable aspect. Without going into deep in the different circulating narratives about which ancient civilization was most likely real and which one was the product of fiction writing, I will lay out some possible locations where the aforementioned, I will say nations or power structures, were most likely present. So the first one is Atlantis, clearly the most famous and controversial one, due to the lack of actual geological or any physical evidence. The theories are going from the whole planet, which could be called Atlantis, completely leaning into the waterworld stereotype, which can be a product of the actual lore of the civilization, with the persistent notion and convenient explanation that it sunk into the Atlantic Ocean at some point. So there are up to 5 debated locations, but there's at least some alignment which points to an area near or directly underneath the Azores, roughly in between Africa and North America. On this map you can also see multiple smaller sets of Atlantis located near Turkey and Santorini. The second one is Mu. This is even more debated, and the options provided by all kinds of theories reach from a similar scenario as Atlantis to all kinds of connections to underground and highly esoteric inner earth connections, provided by a huge underground city like Akhata, for example, which is present in the history of many cultures, especially more eastern nations like India, China, Indonesia, and even Turkey. So from what I've gathered, if I had to choose a location, I would assume if it was ever existent, it most likely was located somewhere in the China to Japan region. Maybe also involving sunken cities located in the more southern oceanic region. Lemuria, which also includes Mu, could be a variation of Mu, or another sunken continent which was, according to the lore, located somewhere in the Indian Ocean. So the main thing to keep your attention on are the potential locations of the alleged power centers of these so-called ancient civilizations on the world map. And for practical reasons and to serve the video's core purpose, we will simplify this into 2 factions, which, if they were present at all, most likely conducted war at a great scale at some point, bringing another variable into this thought experiment, which is the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, and the following Younger Dryas period, which brings us to the next chapter. The Younger Dryas extinction event and the impact hypothesis. Probably the most uncontroversial segment in this video, which is still far away from academically accepted and scientifically proven, at least if we ask everybody. So the Younger Dryas is known to be a period of sudden cooling, which occurred 12,900 to 11,600 years ago. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is a theory for the cause of this period. In this case, the assumption that a comet or asteroid was hitting Earth in certain steadily debated locations. Greenland and the Azores are the most prominent and I would say grounded examples, no pun intended, leading up to cataclysmic short and long-term events and a sudden temperature drop, which is known as the Younger Dryas period. So now that's clear, and soon I will close the gap between the previous two chapters and the current one. So if we ask Google, AI chatbots, or any other convenient surface-level information platform and look at the dates, it's worth to note that according to Plato, Atlantis sunk in a single day around 11,600 BC. And if we look at the, I would say, assumed date of the Younger Dryas period, potentially initiated by an extraterrestrial impact event, we get a time frame, 12,900 to 11,600 BC. So considering the Younger Dryas period is projected to last for approximately 800 years, we arrive at an actual time frame for the impact event of 12,100 to 11,600 BC. So only a 500-year window, and already on the first level of research are some possible connections to note. Of course, clearly considering the academically accepted boundaries in which only the Younger Dryas cooling period is really widely accepted. It's still something, and Plato's claims are clearly one thing, and that's quite old. But in my opinion, if we conduct thinking with an open mind, the details that he claimed, a sudden, I would say, disappearance of Atlantis as a whole in 24 hours, and the projected timing of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis are somewhat remarkable, and a potential connection is immediately visible. It could be any other point in time, but for some reason the demise of Atlantis and a potential immensely destructive impact scenario are assumed to have taken place at an identical point on our rather modern timeline, considering that 12,000 years aren't really that long if we put things in perspective. So first of all, you might wonder why this video is titled UFO Literature. And I will explain it now, while adding the last big piece to the puzzle. So we all know UFO means nothing more than unidentified flying object, but in this context it implies flying machines or spacecraft, which are located on a certain level of technological sophistication, making it able to potentially at least reach the speed of light, decreasing the distance to other potentially habitable worlds into actual conductible travel distances, without mentioning things like the option of time travel or dimension travel, to not get too crazy with it for now. So in general, a way higher technological level of a civilization compared to us. So at least Kardashev 1+. We are currently at 0.7, and I think that's even a rather optimistic assessment. And in this video, there are actually two data points present considering UFOs. Data point number one is of theoretical nature. The thought experiment or theory of an ancient civilization which was highly advanced, maybe even of extraterrestrial origin, coming here or being able to connect with other intelligent life via UFO tech. Data point 2. Actual data and predictions derived from nothing else than knowledge of advanced ETs which supposedly are providing real actionable intelligence through their contactee, manifested in a huge amount of considerably rich writings created over multiple decades. And if you watched my last upload, you know which case I'm talking about. And there are many debates on this case and an incredible amount of stigma and also bad actors, which I assume is normal if actually speaking about and dealing with such literally spaced out and clearly potentially ontological shocking data. And in this video we will not address these discussions, but there are many videos in this playlist which are covering these aspects. So what is actually to find in this data, considering the history of Atlantis and the Younger Dryas impact and a possible connection?
Well, okay, so from what I've read, it names the couple who founded Atlantis and Lemuria. So they were human ETs that came here. I think they were from Lyra, and there were 4 locations of Atlantis. Okay, and I don't know if I'm going to go into them, but basically there were 4. There was like one in the Atlantic Ocean, one in the Azores.
Yeah, the small thing where in Greece where all these buildings
Santorini was Lesser Atlantis, and then there was one more which was the city of Troy.
Okay,
built on Troy or Ephesus now today or whatever, but you know, they build cities on old ancient foundations. So I believe it started 130,000 years ago, and it lasted for 100,000 years. And then what happened was Atlantis and Lemuria. Well, there was a third party that came, but that started fighting everybody, the Hyper Aris. So there was this basically world conflict starting out, and Atlantis and Lemuria got into a battle. What happened was Atlantis had beam ships, basically like flying saucers, and they went over to Lemuria, which is like on the other side of the world, and they wiped out the civilization, at least what was on the surface of the ground. I think there was an underground city or two, but they wiped out the whole civilization, right, in a devastating attack. And they celebrated their victory and they partied that night. They partied all night long, but what they didn't know was that Lemuria had a weapon coming to take out Atlantis. So what they did was they steered this giant asteroid with rockets and propulsion on the back, and these mad scientists rode it all the way down into the earth, and they aimed it right at the center of Atlantis. And man, they hit that thing so hard, nobody survived. So they killed each other, and Atlantis got obliterated. And that was about 11 to 13,000 years ago. And that meteorite hitting the middle of the Atlantic Ocean wiped everything out. That's what caused the Younger Dryas extinction event.
So clearly, there are two separate things here which should be noted. The notion that Atlantis was destroyed by the Younger Dryas impact is one thing, but adding up, explaining it with the result of an act of war provided by very advanced technology, UFO-level tech so to say, is a whole another level. Of course, implementing a, I would say, very open-minded sci-fi level hypothesis into the mix. And before I will elaborate more on the B.M.C data, let's talk about this for a moment. So I think there are two baseline possibilities here. The first one, we are living on a timeline in which we are in the year 2026, are currently at the absolute peak of human technology, a 0.7 on the Kardashev scale, with none, at least broadly accepted, contact to any other intelligent civilization or life form in the universe. The second possibility is we are living on a timeline in which the human race reached similar or even higher sophisticated states in the past on this planet, and due to destructive world wars or natural cataclysms resetted itself up to a potential number of times, maybe even involving interactions with ETs, and therefore potentially implementing parts of their technology into our ecosystem at the time. So I just want to point out that option 1 screams natural human hubris to me, combined with the fact that it seems that our most sophisticated things are weapons, and the extreme investment in these things are reflecting that in constant reverberations of military conflicts shown on the world map, creating weapon deals, a profitable war economy, greed in a costume of national security, but I digress. So was the end of Atlantis just another way more destructive variation of something hovering on the same frequency like the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings? Just another variation of deadly revenge, using the at the time most destructive option available. And I just want to add here that nuclear bombs and the ability to steer asteroids are on a totally different power level. If we would be in an RTS computer game scenario, nukes in this case are more comparable to normal artillery units, whereby a steered asteroid of medium size would be the super weapon with a long cooldown. In this case, utilizing the environment in the same way advanced civilizations, in theory, would use things like a Dyson sphere to harvest suns. Already existing energy sources of another magnitude, just another appropriate advanced tech version of an atom bomb. Clearly a theory which would be able to corroborate the Younger Dryas impact and Plato's rather vague statements regarding the demise of the Atlantean civilization. And if the meteor, which researchers call out to have caused the Younger Dryas impact, really was a direct hit on the capital of the power structure or city people call Atlantis, which was most likely located where the Azores are right now, this would be strong corroboration for this wild claim or theory. So then we got this UFO case, which even if taken with a grain of salt, seemingly puts all these pieces together, filling the gaps with information which is hard to validate for us in our current position. But looking at our world today, it seems fair to extrapolate that if there were similar humans like today, holding even more devastating weapon tech just 12,000 years ago, it's to assume that a considerable chance for the escalation of war was present. Of course, these core details which are provided by the case could be something similar like circular reporting. Atlantis researchers like Ignatius L. Donnelly and Otto Muck were providing a lot of research and literature on these topics in the past, and there's more. According to the information delivered by this ET contact case, the spirit form, our human soul, which basically lived through the body and personality of Otto Muck, was the same one which was once known as Plato. So yeah, this is quite exotic information, which clearly is not able to be proven with evidence or whatever desired manifestation of flawless corroboration, leaving it in a designated area labeled highest strangeness. So in Tome 30 I have explored the whole concept of reincarnation, life cycles and the human soul. but for this video I just wanted to mention it, this particular piece of rather wild information. So if we look at the puzzle pieces surrounding this hypothesis, we got the question about the actual existence and location of Atlantis. We got the question about the actual validity of the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. What can we actually extrapolate from known and established data of human behavior, considering the potential use of inappropriate weapons of mass destruction, based on low-frequency decision-making, likely caused by trauma through previous acts of war? Then we got wild data provided by controversial UFO literature, which surprisingly connecting all these points in a convenient way, also creating repelling effects due to the quality. Only one but crucial data point, which is super sophisticated UFO tech, allowing to steer nearby celestial objects into nearby planets with rather high precision, resulting in an incredible final kamikaze type revenge attack, which is described by ETs as the most destructive war catastrophe this planet has ever seen. This case is a huge topic on its own, but considering the nature of the video subject, advanced ETs could be really the only messengers of this information. If Atlantis really was the epicenter of this attack, it seems logical that there isn't much to find, considering the following Younger Dryas period and devastating global second-order effects caused by the initial impact event, which got a certain complexity to its own chain of events. So I assume that most people wouldn't even try to put these things together, because we ain't got enough real, solid, penetratable data for it at the moment. But the current war-related world situations and increasing developments of technology, especially in war tech since the last 100 years, are giving me reasons to approach this question or hypothesis, based on multiple other highly discussed and rather controversial topics, theories and data points. I think if other intelligent life impacted our planet and human development, and quotes like "sons and daughters of the heavens being smitten by the wild but beautiful earth folks" were the beginning of this interaction, I can really believe that the story didn't end well, maneuvering on a trajectory which allows a certain chain of events resulting in total destruction approximately 12,000 years ago.